A big week coming up this weekend. It's Christmas, it's the holidays. Everyone's excited about that. And AEW Dynamite is in Orlando. It's on campus at UCF, Edition Financial Arena Wednesday night. You got the Continental Classic, one of the huge matches. Our guest, Swerve Strickland, joining us here, who right now is one of my favorites. Every time you're on the screen, man, you are killing it. You are red hot right now. Thanks so much for joining us. I know you're huge into music, obviously. I know you make music. So I want to get the pie chart from you here, Swerve. Your love of pro wrestling and your love for music. What's the percentage for each of them?
Pro wrestling is probably always my biggest. That's probably going to be like 60%, I would say. The other two is like split between the middle, like 2020. But it's growing. It's growing every day, every week. Every time I get into, it's growing every time I get in the studio. Every time I do these outside ventures. Every time I make a connection. Every time Big Pressure plays, and I see the growth in the streams and stuff like that. All that kind of stuff, like it's just growing every day. And even with the Swerve City podcast over here, like when I get like a new guest, and every time I get a new a way to travel and get somebody outside the wrestling bubble, and I get like a celebrity, like all those things kind of grow. But pro wrestling's always going to be my majority.
How did you fall in love with pro wrestling? I feel like fans and pro wrestlers like yourself, you were once a fan just like me. I feel like we all have that moment where we know when we fell in love with it.
Honestly, it was the video games that was where I first fell in love with it. Me and my friends, that's how we all got together. We would have fun together by playing the games. And that's what led us to watching the shows and connecting from the games to the shows. And then I moved around a lot as a kid, so I wasn't always around the same friends all the time. So when I was like in a new area, I would have to find a way to pick up and watch wrestling. So I started watching by myself, and that's where I really fell in love with like 2012, 2002 SmackDown era, and Rey Mysterio became my first favorite wrestler. I was like, yep, this is my guy when he debuted that year, that summer with Chavo. And that's where I would say that's where the love came from. And then when I would come back in town and visit my friends, we'd go back to playing the game. And then we would actually start the backyard wrestling, doing some wild stuff. That's where I like a lot of the deathmatch stuff really started coming from, just doing dumb stuff in the backyard, which I don't think anybody should be doing that at a young age. It's not smart. It's not good. You shouldn't be doing it, especially like hardcore stuff and elements. It's not safe. So don't do that. But we were doing that at the time, and that's where really became passionate about it.
Now, like you said, I know you were a military kid, so you were moving around a bunch. So you got friends from all over. Do you ever think now, man, those guys I was watching wrestling with back 15, 20 years, do they remember me? I hope they know that's me on their television now. Do you think about that?
Oh yeah, those are still, I still keep in touch with a lot of those guys. Those my core friends I still connected with social media wise. We'll DM every once in a while. My first training partner ever, Donald, actually lives not that far from me here in Florida. So I'm like, oh, my buddy's right there. We go back 10, 15 years when I first started this thing. He's just now not that far away. And he's on a comedic venture in life with the stand-up comedy, and he's doing really great at it. So it's really cool. We both get to connect and keep up with each other's passions and what we're both pursuing,
Now, I know you were in the Army. Do you find that anything that you learned from your time helps you right now?
It taught me just how to be a man and how to really hustle and get after the things that you need. You're not waiting for handouts. You're not looking for anything. And you adapt when things have to alter. Things don't go the right way. There's challenges. There's roadblocks. There's mishaps. You adapt and you overcome those things. Like with pro wrestling in the industry and stuff like that, not everything goes your way. Not everything goes as planned. Not all the dates and stars line up every single time. So you do have to change up. You do have to be adaptable. You do have to maneuver and pivot and still be a top level performer on a daily, hourly basis with this kind of industry. So I was learning that from the military, and then I was doing the military and wrestling at the same time. So a lot of those tactics kind of crossed over, and I was like they kind of went hand in hand with a lot of those things, and also gave me a lot of work ethic. I wasn't afraid to do the work. I wasn't afraid to just get up and just go and just drive through the night and stuff. Um, like like this, the military has really wet groomed me at like a 17, 16, 18-year-old kid to really take on the world.
What is your routine like when you're at Dynamite, or maybe it's a big pay-per-view? Are you able to enjoy the rest of the show, or do you have to go through your routine getting ready for your spot?
There's certain things I do peek at and check out prior, especially when like the stories are like intertwining and stuff. I got to make sure like I see what's going on that's related to is what I have going on. So I do pay attention to certain things like there's certain stars that I'm close friends with, so I do peek at them a little more. I'll give them a little bit more attention and stuff like that. But other than that, I kind of get in my zone like hours before the show. I have to get it then and then get comfortable with it and then let it sit for a while and then get it back before I'm about to perform.
What is it like? Do you transform when you walk out onto the ramp in front of the crowd? Do you go through like a transformation?
In some ways, I kind of like I get amped up in the back, but then I dial it down when I'm about to come out. A lot of people are really they have to amp themselves up and get like their adrenaline high when I'm performing. I like to have it low. I like to be calm, cautious, be aware of all my surroundings. I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss the cameras. I don't want to miss the audience. I don't want to miss my opponent. I don't want to miss a Nana on the outside. I don't want to miss like the times. The every little thing is like even when like a piece of my gear or the opponent's gear rolls off and falls off and it's right there. I know it's right there in that corner and stuff like that. I know like every little piece of like movement. Like, oh, the cameraman moves. Why is he over here now? Like this. I like to slow everything down rather than speed it up.
Can you describe what it's like when you get that big pop from the crowd? Maybe it's a move that you did. Maybe it's your entrance. Maybe it's after you get the 3 counts. Like that moment where you get that reaction from the crowd, what that does for a pro wrestler. I feel like it's like, we're a sports show. I have comedians on the show all the time. And it's like that moment where you're killing, and that crowd gets you that reaction. It's like a drug. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's that confirmation. It's like that exclamation point at the end of the sentence. It's like you wrote the perfect it's like you wrote the perfect response in email and you hit send. It's like just yeah, that's that feeling of like, yeah, that we got him. You got him. It's like there's a lot of times where you feel like, oh, were they into that? Did they like that? Did they necessarily like were they behind it? Did they get it? Did they understand it? But when you are firing on all cylinders, everything's flowing. There's a groove. You feel them rising. To me, it's like when I acknowledge them finally, and that's when they start standing. It just happened this past week for me versus Roosh, where like right before the swerve stomp, I went up. I like stood like at the house call and like just stared at them at the crowd in the corner, and everybody started rising because they knew it was coming. I was like, okay, now they know. They know who I am. They know what I do. They know what Swerve is all about, and they understand my match psychology. Because they're with me, and they're about to rise along with me. That's when I know you just confirm you got it.
You clearly feel it, right? Because I feel it as a fan. You're in a moment right now, like you're in a stretch right now where you are super hot. You clearly feel that, right?
I do. I do. I can't say it was by design, but once you get the hook, you know that you are like, okay, I got the hot hand. It's almost like hitting like it's a basketball game. You don't
Yeah.
you feel it's your moment. keep passing me the ball, keep passing me the ball. Like, you know, the shit, like, as soon as you put it up, you know, the shots are going to go in. That's how it is. It's like, I know this is going to work. I know this is going to hit. I know it's not, you're not even guessing anymore. Like, oh, hopefully this works tonight. Like, no, this will work. That's when you know you're in a groove.
Is it a weird question if I ask you if you enjoyed the Texas death match with Hangman? Like, is that enjoyable to go through that match?
It's enjoyable to watch it back, and it's enjoyable that it's over,
Yeah.
but it's not as much enjoyable for the simple fact of like you're bleeding everywhere and you got to control your anxiety because you're watching um like you're watching like yourself getting covered in blood, and you got to keep going, you got to keep pushing, you got to keep, you know, like moving on from one moment to another moment, and then you also got to keep getting up, and you also got to keep you know the match is going to get more violent. You know this guy's going to keep pushing. You know you can't give up. It's a battle of wills. You know, so as far as like being in it is enjoyable. No, you're kind of waiting for it to be over.
Yeah.
But when it's done and you get that praise from the audience that like they feel like they're exhausted because they went through that war with you, or the you get to the back and everybody's praising and giving you such great like shout outs and like just like pats on the back. Is like one of the first people that like praised me was Osprey. He's like, oh, that was freaking mad, man. He's like, the first funniest thing, he's like, well, now you screwed yourself, you can't top it now. So like that's funny. He's like a little brother to me. He's hilarious. But that was great. And then like having to go right to a camera in your face to like shoot another, like, all right, we got to get your reaction right now. Like, there's still staples in your face. You got to cut a promo. I was like, okay, I'm still in it. You know, there's a lot of like stressors that happen throughout those nights and days that a lot of people wouldn't even begin to understand.
Well, and I'll tell you what else is probably a great compliment to you about that match. As a fan, those kind of matches don't normally do it for me. That's it's not my thing. And when that match ended, I'm like, that shit was awesome. I loved it. The blood makes sense because the feud, the violence makes sense because the feud. And for a fan who is not into all of the blood and all of the violence everywhere, for that match then, I'm like, that shit was awesome. That's probably a pretty big compliment.
It was huge, like to get fans that aren't necessarily into those things to cross over to this realm and this style of violence and stuff is like, oh, they do appreciate that, and I think that's the biggest compliment. Is like people that, you know, like it's almost like, oh, I'm not really into documentary film, but you show me a documentary that I'm just glued to, and I was like, oh my god, I learned so much. This is amazing. Oh, this is one I'm saving. This is one of my favorites. That's a crossover, in my opinion. You know, that's winning over a fan base. That's like getting people like the one of the biggest compliments are people who didn't watch the pay-per-view live had to go back because of all the noise that we made from that match. They had to go back and rebuy and watch it, and our buys went up. I wouldn't say it's firmly on us. There's a lot of great talent and like a lot of great showcases on that night. But one of the biggest things is like one of the top reasons to watch that show was like me and Hangman.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a big compliment to us. That's huge in my mind. And the fact that it traveled, the traction from it afterwards, how far like TMZ and like all these other platforms were just picking it up, and like it was like whether you liked it or you talked about it. Yep. And that's what's cool.
Swerve, did we ever get an end to your feud with Keith Lee?
I wouldn't say so. No.
Okay. Because I'd like to see, like, I want to see you guys, like, I want to get a conclusion there. I want to see you guys back together on the screen.
I mean, me and Nana had a conversation this past Wednesday.
Yeah.
There's some noise going over on the Collision. I'm not a Collision guy. I'm on Dynamite. I'm focused on the tournament.
Yeah. So Swerve has his, it's the final for your side of the bracket coming up this Wednesday in Orlando, Edition Financial Arena. What would winning that tournament mean to you? It's a pretty big deal, right?
For the fact that it's the first of anything, like especially one of the most like challenging tournaments you really have out in like the national, like on a national stage of pro wrestling and the industry and stuff like that is very challenging. The fact that you it's not like I was explaining before, it's like it's not like bracketed where like if you like the A seed beats the sixth
Right.
seed, they move on and they're out of the tournament. It's like no, you don't avoid any competition. You got to face everybody. That's not easy, and you got to stay alive. And then you're also waiting for if this person wins, then that knocks you out of contention to move forward. And like, oh, I have to win. And like, there's a lot of like cool elements that are narrative and story driven. And the promos afterwards is like telling the story of like the human that is behind the competitor that is going through all these things, the pain, the struggle, the mental abuse that we're all going through, like the people that aren't winning tournaments, how that's hurting them mentally, the people that are winning, that they have to keep that up and their ego is being challenged and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that are just being shown. So winning that after everything and winning that means a lot. That means that winning the being the first Triple Crown champion means a lot. That's a great way to cap off 2023.
Well, that match is this Wednesday in Orlando, Edition Financial Arena. The winner of that is going to be in the finals at World's End, which comes up at the end of the month. I really enjoyed this, Swerve. Tell everybody, I know you got the Swerve City podcast, you got your music. Tell everybody all the ways that they can hear everything you're doing.
YouTube.com/Swerve City Podcast. You got all the episodes. We just did episode 70 last night, recorded with Chris Van Fleet.
He's great.
He's incredible. A very, very knowledgeable, informational type of episodes, and with a lot of jokes and a lot of cracks, a lot of like little side comments that if you watch closely, you'll know what we're talking about. So check that out. You subscribe, please. It's been growing. It's been great. You can also see a lot of music videos. Me and Monteezy, my co-host on the podcast, and my partner in Swerve City, the music group. You'll see a lot of music videos and prior albums that we put out that is on there. But if you want to listen on other streaming platforms, Swerve the Realist, my solo album, You Couldn't Be Me, is out on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Tidal, iTunes, you name it. Go out there, check it out. It's awesome. Put a lot of work into it. And Swerve City, listen to all of our albums on all the streaming platforms.
Good luck this Wednesday, Swerve. Appreciate you, man. You're killing it. Love what you're doing.